Okay, we're recording. Hi, Rene.
Hi, Scott.
How you doing? Hope
I'm
you're
good.
lovely tonight. And this is Sunday, about 5:50, and we're going to try to do a Akashic reading for you and hopefully bring some
This
guidance where
says
you've
live.
been.
Does it say live if it's recording as well?
Yeah, this is just a recorded, and then it'll be posted later if everything goes peachy. But yeah, it says live, but it's recorded live. It's not on YouTube now. So, yeah. So, we're going to just do a brief meditation to connect you to Earth and Spirit. So, think of any place on the universe on the planet, that makes you happy. A park, a beach, anywhere you've been that really makes you happy. And just imagine yourself being there.
Okay.
The loving space, connecting with your feet. Just think of anywhere on the planet that makes you happy. Being part of Earth, that energetic part of Earth.
Okay.
You're there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now I want you to look above and see the universe, the stars, the moon, and other planets, and think of the white light of heaven's realm and the infinite possibilities. And imagine this loving space, the possibilities of where you've been. And now I want you to think of your heart and your soul and the connected Akashic records, so we can bring those in and see where you've been on this planet, otherworldly, and what you possibly need to know, or where you've been. And it's all about the unconditional love space that makes us a pure soul, the heart and soul connected. Okay. I think I'm ready. Are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I got you written down, and I'll just do a little writing once in a while to try to connect. And I always like to start with how many Earth lives, and then try to see what kind of angels and guides are guiding you. So, how many Earth lives? We can always be. Our soul may have started millions and millions of years ago as an entity somewhere on a different planet, but generally, what's most important is when we started our Earth soul life.
Okay.
To me, you feel a relatively young soul.
Hmm.
So young, in a sense, to me, it feels medium. So what they're telling me is like 11,000 years.
Okay.
So generally, if you've been an older soul, you've experienced Atlantis, Lemuria, 20,000 plus, pushing 30,000, whatever. For some reason, they're telling me about 11,000. So that's very, you know, you've experienced quite a bit in this lifetime, with your soul life. But it feels like you've came in about the time of the Atlantean experience, what I feel, at 11,000. Because like the Lemurian energy goes back up to 80,000 years. But many of the souls that I've contacted and talked about are pushing, 20 to 30 in that Lemurian energy. but we'll see where this goes yet. So I'm thinking about 11,000. So it's kind of like in the medium range. I
Okay.
think the least I've sensed as a new soul is about 4,000 years. So it's not like you're new developing. You've had experiences, but it feels like you don't go way back. So how many lives is that? I'm sensing about 110. So that's pretty close to an average of 100 years per. Um, how many lives of a male and female? I'm sensing approximately 60 to 50, about 60 to feel female. So like approximately 60 to 50. How many connected to the universe? Okay, you've had a lot, about 40 of them, I'm saying, you've been connected to the universe, which is a very good number. So it's not like you've been um, disconnected to a way of that you would just go through life not um, understanding universal ways, and knowing that spirit's there, not evolved enough. So you've been blessed in that way because that's a high number of what I've seen before. Um, as far as direct messages, I'm only seeing like two, meaning where, you know, the direct connection of psychic per se, where you would be a scribe or you would directly get messages. So technically that's kind of a low number, but technically not. Because the general average I've seen before, we're only talking teens. Like 20-ish is maybe the max because we have so much to learn. Let's see, where are these? Okay, this is not very popular, but sensing like ancient Egypt, like 500 BC. You're a male, and usually they've always been female. Like I can't remember what they call them right now, but they're like priestesses. But there was another name for them. But for some reason, I'm showing you like you were. Um, this is unusual because usually there was a female. They always wanted, like a wife or a daughter to be like a priestess within the pharaoh system of the ancient Egypt. But you were a male here, and it feels directly connected to whatever pharaoh was at, approximately 500 BC. This pharaoh was only ruling for maybe 20 years. It wasn't very long. So it's kind of like a shadow type um, Intuit, because so I'm seeing like the established one was like a shadow puppet. I'm getting the reference of a shadow puppet because like you got the person here who everyone thinks is the priestess or the scribe for heavenly messages, but you were actually the one doing the work. You brought people together here.
Hmm.
And what is those names? There's something about, I can't remember their names, but you've heard the references of Enel and Enki, those scribes from these angels from ancient history. you're tapping into one of those sources, these angels above. They've presented themselves. I'm being shown in human spirit on Earth, and you were giving source messages here. This is pretty neat. Um, it feels like you were advising the emperor, the pharaoh at that time, to. It feels like that time they were trying to expand territory, so kind of like advising the pharaoh how to expand territory, how to fight battles, where to go. It wasn't really your gig, but you obeyed because there was a greater message there, beyond. It's kind of like you understood the message of like what Jesus wanted, love humanity, but there was this other side where you needed to obey. So there's kind of a disconnect. Like you wanted this, but you had to obey this, so you proceeded. So I don't know if this is in the Google possibility, but like I said, I'm getting reference to about 500 if you want to Google who was involved then, what was happening. But it feels like expanding territory within the Pharaoh's rule. It
Yeah,
could very well be.
I'll have to look it up because I'm curious because I have felt Egyptian connections. Specifically, if it makes a difference for you, I've often thought that I maybe had some connection to Thoth.
Thoughts? What you might? You know what? I can't remember. I've heard
Thoth
it.
was the one that was in charge of weighing the feather versus the heart. He was involved in that process.
Do you remember what time frame that was?
No, I don't off
No.
the top of my head. That's why I'm gonna have to look it up. Yeah.
Yeah, just look it up and figure it out.
But the Egyptian thing makes total sense, whether it was Thoth or not. That definitely resonates in some
But yeah,
ways.
there's some kind of higher connection with these angels. I'm just kind of getting reference to the. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, but there's these two that they always talk about with scripture or whatever, with
Mhm.
Enkiel and Enniel. I
I'll have
think
to
that's
look
how
it
it
up.
is,
I'm not familiar with
but
them,
it
but
feels like there was expansion going on along with ancient Greece too. So I think there's battles going on with expansion of territory within those two rules about that same time. What I'm sensing. So it doesn't feel like harmonious society. It feels like there were battles for land territory, kind of like what's going on with Russia right now. They're trying to take back Ukraine. That is that kind of feeling. Um, I don't think you were alive that long though, because it's like once the rule ends,
I
then
was going to say, well, if it was a pharaoh who was only in power for 20 years and I was a
right.
shadow worker, then
That's what
yeah,
it feels like.
that doesn't seem like I would have had much of a place after that
Right.
pharaoh
So then the next
term
pharaoh takes
ended,
up.
right?
Right. The next pharaoh comes in. You know, his
Brings
crew.
in his own administration.
For some reason, I'm feeling approximately 35 years old, and then you were cast out or whatever. Um, let's see what the other time. Do you have a sense of any connection to England?
Um,
Because I'm
Not
sensing like,
necessarily. I mean, I certainly have some on my maternal side. There's certainly some ancestry back to England,
mhm,
but I don't know that I've ever had anything jump out at me to
okay.
say
Well, I'm trying to
that I
tell. Like I said, I sensed two lives as a seer type person or psychic or connected, and they're bringing me to England, and it's approximately 1800s, early 1800s. I'm sensing. I'm not sure who was in charge, who was involved, what dynasty that was, but it actually feels more church-like. Not that you were a pastor, but it's not like it was evangelical. You know what I mean? It's like you were actually helping people. You were bringing knowledge of what we're all trying to do in our community is like raise the vibration of souls and help people. So whoever was there within 1800s, but they're giving me a image of the church, like of a church, but it doesn't feel like you were a pastor or anything like that. And again, I'm sensing male figure, um, but it's more of helping. Um, they're showing me you only lived 50 some years. You passed with some disease, but it feels like you took on too much energy from others trying to help. There was some aspect that you didn't know how to release sadness or helping others. That kind of energy. It's like if you take it in, you didn't know how to release it, so you kind of took it in. And it feels cancerish, that kind of feeling. But I'm getting in the 50s. You passed there. Okay. Let's just, so 11,000. Where else do we need to go? Some reason they're showing me New Mexico area. Um, they're showing me like a cowboy with a lasso. Um, Obviously you bounced around.
Clearly.
Um, it's like you went from here to here to here, whatever. Because if you were in the 1800s in England, and then it feels mid 1700s or something, or early in New Mexico. But yeah, they're definitely showing me New Mexico. Um, it's almost like you were a showman. Kind of like, it's like double duty. It almost feels like you were a veterinarian, but you also did these shows. Almost like, what do you want to call it? Like a,
Almost like a, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Like
yeah,
a
like
little traveling
like
circus slash
you,
rodeo or something.
like a rodeo, kinda. But you also took care of the animals too. It's kind of like you did double duty for this business or whatever's going on. It They show me like northeast New Mexico, because they show me New Mexico. But there was some kind of rodeo kind of circuit, but it was like small arena. Not a lot of people coming, but it's almost like you were a veterinarian showman because you knew how to lasso, you knew how to entertain. It very well could be what your desire is now, to bring people together, to be a show person, to bring people together. And you talked about having pets and care for them kind of feeling. So maybe referencing that kind of feeling. Like, but you had some skills there. I'm being shown with not only helping, but entertaining. But you actually may have been a female. I'm sensing more female energy, where kind of out of the standard of normal, you know, what you
Like
would see of
Calamity Jane or something.
right, that kind of sense. Um, I'm not sensing any real close family. It feels like you're devoted to a lot of animals more so. Yeah, I'm just showing a disconnect of any kind of family. Like if you were married or kids or anything, it just feels like you were devoted to the sense of that life. It's like when you think of anyone's life. We let's say we live 80 years. There's a lot of boring parts. Like you kind of just sense the clips of what's important. Maybe who defines you. Okay, let's go to the next one we need to see. This feels pretty recent. Um, it feels kind of out east, kind of like I'm trying to think of the states, but it feels Pennsylvania-ish, but
Hmm.
south. It's in that area. It almost feels like you were some kind of tycoon or made some money in possibly railroad or investments. It feels like it was before. This might have been even your last one. Um, they're showing me it's before the crash. So like possibly like 1850 to 1910 kind of feeling, or after. It was like just before the crash, and I'm being shown a lot of money. But unfortunately, they're showing me you may have used a lot of people. Um, your success went to your head. You kind of feel like you've used people, um, maybe even used women. Um,
That's really interesting because
greed, because greed and power was your your kryptonite, your desire. And it feels like possibly because of what maybe you've done to other people, this life you needed to regress because it feels like you used a lot of people and you needed to treat others differently, kind of feeling. So I mean, technically it's not regress, but it's like you've you've attached yourself to a powerful position and gained it all, but you didn't use it for good. So maybe now in this life you know you may have a meager existence, but you treat people better and see people who they are rather than just using. So like I'm not sure where, but it feels like financial. You had businesses, but it feels like you may, and you're male. What I'm saying, but you used people, you used women, you used business
well,
to get
and
ahead.
that makes total sense because for one reason or another, I find myself a lot of times sort of circling back and reading and learning about your J.P. Morgans and the guys who are all about the steel and the railroad and everything
Oh, I
and
think it's steel. I'm sensing steel. When you mentioned
yeah,
steel, I think you might have
because
been
that is
some kind of
exactly what
steel type
all
of thing.
those people. I mean, that's what they did. That's how we're in the position we're in today, because even when they were forced to disband their companies because they had become monopolies.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, they didn't really. They broke it up and named it different things and handed it out to family members instead of actually So I find myself reading about that, and it's irritating. I can see where I could be irritated with my own self to a certain extent for that sort of thing, especially now seeing, you know, going on 200 years later, 150 years later, uh, where we're beholden to this capitalist notion that
Right.
those people created.
Yeah.
Because if you
Right.
pull everything back down to it, I mean, like I say, you get it's the same handful of families that's involved today as was then.
Mhm.
Your Rothschilds and J.P. Morgan and God, I can't even think all their names right now, but there's a dozen or so of them. And if you start looking, sure, there's layers and layers and layers between what. But yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting, and it does make
Um,
sense.
maybe after the fact, maybe Google something about. So I don't think this was an empire, right? It feels like it. I'm getting the hit of 1911, possibly around that time. It feels like the business failed. Like there might have been a scandal, or it did become a dynasty, like the Rothschilds, that kind of thing. Like I said, I don't sense it collapsed during the Great Depression or anything. It's like they made a lot of money, this family or this man within, but if they're showing me 1911, so it's somewhere around there. But and like I said, it feels like southern Pennsylvania area. It could be dipping into whatever state is near there, but like southern eastern kind of. But like I said, it doesn't feel like a dynasty family. But you had it all. You had wealth, the good life, but unfortunately, it feels like this life you may have some different things going on because of what you may have done to others. You know,
Sure.
it may even be who you love now because of what you may have done now, or that kind of sense of feeling. But yeah, some reason they just give me 1911, so maybe something to Google
Yeah, I'll have to.
that
I'll
just
make
to
a
see
note there.
what may have come up there. But like I said, I don't feel like it's a dynasty family like the Waltons or the Rothschilds or whoever.
Right.
But there was some kind of collapse about that time, whatever it may be. It may have been from corruption or whatever. Who knows? But or they found out, or some kind of tax evasion. Who knows? But that's what they're showing me there. Okay, let's see where else we need to go. Hmm. I think you've had a lot of um, grounded Earth lives because I'm not seeing anywhere out in the universe since the 11,000 I'm showing, but I'm getting a reference to prior to this, I'm seeing Mars. So I think you've had a life on Mars at some point. Uh, this is like
I don't
maybe
think I'll be able to Google that one though.
no, they're telling me like 100,000 years ago. This is a long time ago. They're actually showing me that Mars actually had life because I'm seeing trees, I'm seeing water. I haven't seen this before, but it's always been my thought. I think it feels like Mars was had a nuclear explosion because you look at the pictures, it looks like a desert.
Mhm.
No life. But yeah, they are actually showing me approximately 100,000, maybe 200,000, but a long time ago, there was life on Mars. They're showing me. I'm seeing trees. I'm seeing water. Yeah, it was pretty close to Earth. Not this many people, but yeah, they're showing me you've been on Mars about 100,000 years ago or so. Darwin community. I'm not sure what race this is because it kind of looks like a hybrid, but you're actually kind of short. Maybe 4'10" or so. There's like a dark complexion, so maybe like a skin or something that's blackish. It's really hard to describe. From like the normal pictures you see, it's not like a gray, or how would I describe it? It's kind of like a cricket. It's not a praying mantis, but because I'm seeing like a humanish form, but for some reason they want to say cricket.
Hmm.
Um, I think it was a humanish form, but I think it was the eyes. It's almost like bug eyes, right? The huge eyes, above his head, but it's kind of like a human cricket. They're showing me because they're showing me as you're only like 5'4" 10" or whatever, short, but humanish. It's you had functions of like a human, but there's just something about cricket eyes, I guess, or more so. There may have been some kind of antenna I'm being shown. Yeah. No, there's no hair. What were you doing? What were you doing? It feels like you're just a construction worker kind of feeling. Just
Hmm.
worked. Um, yeah, you had family. I think you were married. You had family. 'Cause, like, they're showing me like three little kids. Some kind of housing. It feels roundish. Because I always sense there's no right angles in extraterrestrial housing or whatnot. Feels like everything's got a dome shape for some reason.
I think, and
It
I'm
just
not a
feels like you were a builder. That kind of
physics or anything, but I think dome shapes or circle shapes are more stable than your geometric shapes.
Yeah. So if a storm comes through, it'll just
Hmm.
go over instead of, it's kind of like, I guess that makes sense because like the better gas mileage vehicles are more aerodynamic rather
Right.
than a square box, with wind resistance or whatever. But there's something about, I guess I never had that, but it was always something about the geometrics of a dome or some kind of no right angles. Everything just looks domish to me.
That makes sense because I
There's a
think
reason.
I've seen, I think I've seen or read somewhere that talked a little bit about how that's just a more stable shape. It's
You've
able
ever,
to sustain a
yeah.
lot more
Have you ever
than
seen these foam houses?
the foam houses.
Yeah, like a foam house. I can't remember. I was younger, and they had these futuristic houses, but they were domish, and they were basically made out of some kind of foam that would
I
harden.
remember
And I think it was near my area they created one. It never really took off. I don't know why, but they just created with foam. Like a slide to go from the upstairs to downstairs and steps, and this foam created
that.
the rooms and everything, and then added whoever. But it was kind of fascinating. I don't know if this builder would ever thought it'd be the way of the future, or ahead of their time. But I have to look that up again. Maybe share that with you. But there was some kind of futuristic dome housing there someone was planning like 20, 30 years ago, but it didn't really take off. But it was pretty cool. I think you can still walk through it today. I think it's like an hour and a half, 2 hours away. still there, but
Cool.
it's futuristic. It's kind of interesting concept. He was trying to, promote building these foam type houses that never really took off, but neat concept. Okay. So as far as extraterrestrial or space, otherwise, basically that's all I kind of see right now because it feels like you're very Earth based. You wanted to stay in this realm. Let's see where else we need to go. Do you have any artistic talents
Mm-hmm.
or believed in it? Or, okay, they're showing me like somewhere in Greece. 1400s, and they're showing me like the old what do they call that paint thing you would hold in your hand, and you
Oh, palette. Yeah,
palette or whatever.
yeah.
So
That's
they're
not.
showing me
I'll think of it in a minute.
you you were a pretty accomplished artist in Greece somewhere. Not Athens. I'm not sure where Athens is, but it feels like southeast of Athens, wherever that is. But yeah, they're showing me that anvil and painting. So you do have some artistic talent of pretty nice art of
Cool.
creations in your history. I'm sensing approximately 13 to 1400 or so. Um, you were famous, but you sold quite a bit. I think you also dabbled in clay. Um, More like the bus. Like
Oh, bless you.
the Lincoln bust, and
Right.
like create. You dabbled
That's
in.
really interesting because I actually I consider myself an artist. I was an art major in college, and
Oh, cool.
I was actually uh, considering going into ceramics as my focus subject.
Isn't that crazy?
So that's interesting.
Yeah, it's within you because they were showing me, making paintings or whatever, but also, I mean, it wasn't like you were ahead of the time, but you were really good at, you know, scenery painting. Not as much with people, but it's more scenery based. But then I'm showing you dabbled in the clay making of people. Somehow you could do it with clay of making like a bust or, more people oriented, or they're showing me like multiple people. Like you you create like a human head or something, but then there was something coming off, like kind of an abstract. It's kind of hard to explain. Like there's people or limbs coming off something else,
Hmm.
kind of like a Medusa kind of thing. Like you got the head, but then you have like snakes coming off the head. There's something different about it. It's like something you tried. There's some kind of abstract to the creation of. It's really hard to explain when you're trying to look at an image.
No, I hear you.
And I don't have a clue about it, but it was an interesting try.
Well, but if it was, like
It
you
was
say,
it was creative.
Athens, Greece, well, I mean that would make sense because that
It's
would tie
cool.
it into the Greek mythology stuff.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that there, and like
Yeah.
I said, it feels 1300ish around there. So something but it doesn't feel like Athens. I'm being shown it's like southeast a little bit, 100, 200 miles, whatever, wherever Athens. I don't don't know,
Yeah,
but
I'll have to look up the
somebody,
map. I don't know off the top of my head.
yeah, it's 11,000. What are you doing? 11,000. Where'd that start at? Where'd that start at? This. Remember when I did Jeff Bailey's? I was seeing something in China, and this feels very similar too. On the east part, there's a mountain, and I'm seeing like near where the Great Wall was built. This feels like it's before. There's a. I think you started your soul journey in the mountains in the eastern part of China, because I'm seeing mountains and I'm seeing like just fire, um, primitive. Just find make your way. I think I'm sensing that's where you kind of started was. I don't know my geography of cities, but basically, if you whatever there may have been a volcano pretty close. So wherever the Great Wall of China kind of started in the east there, or been part of it, kind of wherever the Great Wall started, not middle, but just south of middle. I'm not sure where it actually started, but it feels like there's a mountain range and there might be a volcano close, but it almost feels like there's goats there, a subsistent. They just show me the basic fire. So this is probably about 11,000 years ago kind of feeling. I don't sense there's really any records about this civilization, this group of people that started. Um, it just feels like subsistence. Nothing's fantastic. Just learning how to evolve,
Yeah,
learning how to
learning how to human.
there was what's that? Yeah, learning how to be human basically in a small group of people. Just only a few hundred. It's really small. Um, there is there is a small lake and a waterfall. They're showing me. So that's where you got your water, but your little village with teepees and kind of subsistence there because it was. And then they're showing me like down the valley, there was some kind of cropping going on. You're planting there's rudimentary tools. You just had a stick and you found a rock, and somehow this society figured out how to, or found seeds, or somehow to plant. I mean, it's really kind of interesting just how the basics of a life, how it actually started. How basic it was.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm actually seeing some kind of goats or something because there's some kind of few animals raising besides other stuff. I'm like, how else are you supposed to live? There's no processed food or anything, right?
Right.
We had the basics there with there's some kind of waterfall and there's a lake there, but you had some kind of domesticated animal, but it's kind of a mix of a goat, eh, a goat and a yak. I mean, it's not like one or the other. It's like a mix.
Hmm.
It's kind of weird because I know what some of these animals look like, but it's like different. It's kind of like a mix. But I think that's where you started. That's what I'm sensing anywhere. But it's like near where the Great Wall started. So
Hmm.
something to kind of look up, like where it actually was started, or it's like part of it, and just kind of maybe search where there might be a volcano or something.
Yeah, a volcano and a waterfall and a yeah
Yeah,
that
some kind of lake, but it's elevated.
yeah me and Google Maps are gonna have to have a little visit with one
just just see if
another.
there's something in that area. Is that I kind of looked where the Great Wall was all created, but yeah, it'd be nice if I knew everything about the planet, everything, but it just clips here and there. I guess my history in high school kind of helped there. A little bit. All right. Um, where else? Where else do we need to go to see about you? Okay, this area feels Russian, but it's kind of I don't know what country this is, but it's kind of like the middle of Europe, but kind of where Russia is. This is approximately 1600s. I'm seeing an entertainer, but it's almost like an all female review. And I think
Hmm.
um, there's some kind of long dresses. There's some kind of like, I'm seeing, like I said, I think you're an entertainer. I think you were like in a forbidden marriage of another woman because I'm seeing partnership, but there's like, it's almost like you would see a ballet or not ballet. Can't remember what they were. So you knew the veil dances, you know,
Oh, like belly dancers
yeah, kind of like ballet dancers, but there's different
or
kind of attire.
burlesque type thing.
Kind of. But this is feels like in a Russian area, and there feels like ceremonies were done with a whole bunch of women, and it feels like an entertainers for the hierarchy kind of thing. But it's not that like ballet dress. It's it's really strange. But I see veils, but it's not risque. You know what I mean? I'm not seeing like only a bra and panties and veils. There's more costumes to it because I feel like they
I say
were
that those older ones like that, I've always seen imagery that's, uh, I don't know, almost like an I Dream of Jeannie kind of thing. With the poofy
kind of,
pants,
yeah,
the
kind of,
veil.
but a little bit more
Yeah,
because I don't think they were professional entertainers at that time were really
it wasn't
showing.
about the skin; it was about
Yeah, they weren't
the
showing much.
movements and the tradition of it
Yeah,
all.
there's more costume to it. I'm being shown. But I'm definitely being shown.
You gonna come
I
up here?
mean, a love of dance, a love of artistic flair, but they're showing me love for women more so than men. It feels like men repulsed you. I think they, it's kind of like groping. Since you were an artist and this beauty, they would come on, right? That kind of feeling.
Yeah.
back in the day. It's like you're entertaining for the royalty, and they were since they were of status, they would just expect that they would be served per se.
Right.
And it's something. It feels like something that you rejected wholeheartedly.
Sort of like the folks who like to visit restaurants like Hooters and think that they
Correct.
get
That kind
get
of
a
feeling. Right.
pinch cheeks and
You
stuff.
have to deal with it because you're an entertainer or serving, but you don't have to take it.
What?
So I think part of that there's so it feels like there's a rejection there within your subsistence of mean people, right? Either you've possibly been that evil person that hurt others, or you've been in that role of being taken advantage of or tried to. So it feels like you've possibly come around to I want the tender side of life. And rather than being abused or being used, you want to make changes. But there's also artistic sides, and there's also sides of being part of community. So I mean, yeah, so there's also been there's also things that may have carried over for health issues too of I think we've all had anything, of we may have died of a disease as a young kid, or I'm positive we've all experienced everything.
Hmm.
But it's just little who makes us who we are today. You know,
Well,
I don't, I
after my
don't,
experience, my medical experience, and having seen what others, particularly in my family, have gone through, I've really become a firm believer that what we hold on to, what we do not let go of, manifests itself in our bodies. And
yeah,
so, with
definitely.
mine being neck and back issues, I was the scapegoat child in my family. I was the scapegoat, particularly after my father's passing, and with me being the oldest and looking just exactly like my dad, I became the scapegoat for my mother and siblings, and dealing, so I carried other people's burdens and kept my head down. And so I think that's why I was affected with spinal issues, because, those were things that I
Hmm.
didn't learn to let go of until this last 4 years and going through all this experience that I have. And so yeah, I mean, I see that in other people, people who are struggling to deal with, um, or struggling to process things in general. I've seen them have autoimmune stuff crop up on
Hmm.
them rather
Yeah.
suddenly. Um, my mother passed of colon cancer. So she obviously had problems digesting and processing things, or as I like to say, she was full of shit her whole life.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've become quite a firm believer, and I saw it too when my father passed. He passed when I was 16, and he was beginning to make a recovery from what he was going through, right up until he decided to go to court while he was still in the hospital and at this point, I want to say we were getting paid through Social Security or something anyway. But he went to court while he was in the hospital recovering to try to get the child support and everything lowered, if not eliminated completely.
Hmm.
And it was not, it was a very short amount of time between him making that decision and him passing. And he deteriorated quickly, and I mean, he must have had an excruciating and painful passing.
Yeah,
Um,
I believe that. Yeah.
yeah, and it was, his body was so disfigured and bloated from the toxins and everything that had been going on with him that we literally could not even have an open casket funeral. Like they
Dude,
were so, you know, we cannot even begin to make him look like he looked when he was alive. And so yeah, I mean, everything I've been through, everything I've seen and experienced in this life, um, oh, I absolutely believe that we can bring
we can
that.
manifest our illnesses.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you live in a toxic environment or you take on that toxic environment, you don't let it go. I mean, yes, it is unfortunate some people are born with defects. And, you know, I could
Well,
not
that goes
imagine.
back to the soul contract they came into life with as
Right. They
well.
already came
And
in
if
with.
not them, then the people around them. So yeah, and I mean, it all ties in, and
I
you know,
mean,
it makes you really, at least it's made me really pay attention to what I hold on to and making sure that I'm letting go of the things that don't serve me, the things I don't have control over.
yeah,
Um, you know, and I've been very much, whether consciously, probably more unconsciously than not, because it's only in the last few years that, you know, I think a lot of us has had that time to sort of have that calm, quiet, you know, with being stuck at home, whether through COVID or in my case, longer than that. Um, it You finally get that time that this society doesn't allow us, that time to sit with yourself and think about things. Um, and for me, I've found a vocabulary for a lot of these things that I've always felt, but I didn't know how to explain.
yeah.
And what I have found is that I believe I was definitely part of my soul contract with my family, was that I was the one that came in to heal those generational wounds, you know, that I was going to be, in many respects, I am the end of the line. You know, I'm certainly the end of, even my brother changed his last name. We don't have the same last name. I still
Oh,
have the name we were born with, but he does not. Um, and so that, you know, I very much believe that that was a part of why I'm here this lifetime, was to say no, I'm ending these cycles. This is stopping, at
yeah.
least along this line. This is stopping with me.
The
And
best
again,
way
I
to do it.
didn't
Yeah.
necessarily, I don't know if it was conscious all of the time, um, but I certainly was the odd duck, right? You know, I was the one that was the most outside of the norms, of and particularly within a family structure that uh, tried so desperately to present this picture of normalcy, and and present themselves as having, you know, no cares or whatever. Um, you know, I'm the one that said, yeah, no, I call bullshit. You know, so
So
uh,
you took in on a lot of the burdens though too.
yes, oh, absolutely,
So that, yeah,
absolutely,
that's a
and I
tough
think,
one.
Well, but I think that that too is what gave me the impetus and the courage to say enough is enough. You know, when people keep piling on and piling on. For instance, with my sister, um, to this day, I have no idea why she stopped talking to me. I asked her, and her response was, "Well, if you don't know, then I'm not telling you." And so that was like, okay, well then I guess we're just gonna leave this as it is because I'm not gonna keep guessing, and I'm certainly not gonna continue, to issue carte blanche apologies for stuff that I don't know. And if you don't tell me what's wrong, I can't fix it. And so we've been estranged ever since because I have no freaking idea what crawled up her panties and wadded them up.
Oh, good Lord.
But there again, she was trained, conditioned, coached, whatever you want to say, by my mother for me to be the one that was always at fault. It was always something I did that caused XYZ. My brother and sister-in-law, I was after my divorce, I was staying with them for a brief time, and they ended up asking me to leave far earlier than they said that they were going to, at Thanksgiving, no less. Uh, and they blamed everything on me, like I was the cause of the issues in their relationship. Now, never you mind that within a few years they divorced because my brother went to diddling the babysitter, but it was my fault, right?
Do you think there was a blame with your father for some reason with your sister?
Yeah, no, it totally all goes back to my mother's issues with my father, because I firmly believe, and I've come to, um, I've collected information over the years, and have collected enough dots that once you start connecting them, they make more sense. I believe 100% that my father was a closeted gay man. And of course, that with him being born in the mid 40s and coming of age in the 50s and into the 60s, that you didn't do that. That wasn't a thing that you
Right.
were. And if you did, and I think that it's very much a reason why he struggled to create a connection with his children, because of course any gay person at that point in time was automatically a pedophile, right? And so, especially knowing my mother, if he would have owned that truth about himself, she would have very much used that against him and would have made ridiculous claims. So
Right.
she had this resentment that he was not the man that she thought that he was, and so it sort of all rolls down the hill from there. So
Well,
so yeah.
that's what I'm sensing. It has something. Your sister's something about with your father.
Well, and you have to remember too that my sister and I mean, everybody has their own individual relationships, right?
Right. Of
If you
course.
have a sibling, your relationship with your parents is not the same. But with my sister in particular, with there being such a large age gap between us, there's a 7-year difference between us.
Hmm.
And that's enough of a difference because when my parents were going through their divorce, I was 13, 14 during that time period. And again, I was the oldest. So um, my mother wrapped me up and had me really convinced that my father was just the root of all evil. That, he was just a horrible human and this, that, and the other. And so, since I was old enough to make decisions on my own, well, I say on my own. Of course, they were heavily influenced at the time, so
Hmm.
I would often refuse to go spend the weekends with him and stuff. Whereas my sister had to; she didn't get a choice, and so they had, and it's just a different dynamic. You know, he spent time with her. He bought her affection because again, he didn't know how to express that. And yet I have a better relationship with him now. He's very much. I know he's around me all the time now, and I talk to him, and I consider him sort. I, I lean on him to be the leader. For, go gather up the spirit team, bring them. Tell him I need this, please. I've sort of enlisted him as my bullhorn, if you will, when I'm trying to learn, as I'm learning to talk to my spirit guides. And um, it was interesting too because when he passed, um, and again, I was 16 at the time. He passed, and we found 3 letters in his belongings, one to each of his brothers and one to me. And I never shared it with my mother ever, and but I always hung on to it. Um, I don't know why, because usually stuff like that, I'm not necessarily the most sentimental. I've lost so much stuff over the years, so many times that I don't really necessarily get sentimental over things. But that was just one of those things that I kept stuffed away, and now it's framed and on my fireplace mantle because now I understand it. But it was written 2 years before he passed away, and so yeah, I mean, it's just it's finally. I don't know. I feel like that relationship has blossomed in the last few years. Through the veil or through the whatever. But yeah, it's yeah. There's
That's a wonderful
definitely those
thing.
familial things that impact us and affect not only how we engage with immediate family, but with outsiders as well. I mean, everything I've been through, I've got a trust issue or two,
Yeah. It's like
but
with
at the
anyone, we
same
don't
time,
know what happens behind the scenes, the closed doors within family dynamics and what we've gone through.
yeah,
And everything we've done through is all about soul interactions to hopefully be better people. And
yeah.
those that
Well,
do
and
not
I
be
hope,
better people, they're going to have to
and
do it
I'm
again.
trying to make sure that that's how I utilize that. I've the way I was raised, the way I was raised to well, I was of the children are better seen and not heard genre. So we weren't necessarily encouraged to express our feelings unless they were pre-approved. Uh, but it has it has made a difference. I understand and can recognize that if I choose to, even with just knowing a little bit about a person, I could eviscerate you verbally if I chose to. Now, I mean, I'm not saying I'm proud of that skill, but it exists. And so I really make a conscious effort to tell people, the positives, share, when, I make it a point now to, if I love someone or appreciate someone, I'm grateful for someone, I really make an effort to make sure that I verbalize that to them. And I utilize, the recognition that I have in others instead of taking the negatives and rubbing salt in the wound or whatever. Um, I really try to glob onto the positives and shine a light on that. I try to make sure that I tell people when I'm proud of them, that when they think of me, they think of someone who's kind and compassionate and generous and loving, and not someone who can turn to bitch on a dime, you know? Because
That that is
that's not how it doesn't make me feel good to be that way. It makes me feel good to be this way. And so that's where I'm at in my little journey.
that's beautiful soul growth. It really is. To not scold another soul for being who they are because you believe something different or whatever. It's kind of the same thing with how I treated my daughters because we make mistakes. So when I was, when they were growing up and I always wanted them to talk to me and do things. So if they made a huge mistake, they wouldn't be afraid to come to me, right?
Right.
But their mother is a different person. And there was a fear there to go to mother because they didn't want to get yelled at.
Mhm.
But they could come to me if they got a speeding ticket or whatever, or got busted at a high school party, whatever it is. You know, they could rest assured that it'd be like, I wasn't going to cut them down because a mistake was made. But we could learn from that mistake. I'm like, okay, now we deal with it. I'm not going
Yeah,
to
I
hate,
mean,
I'm
very
not
much.
going to hate you, or I'm not going to cut you down because you made a mistake, but you don't want to do it again.
Right,
Learn
and
from
that environment that I came up in was very much that fear based. God forbid you stepped wrong, or
it.
said
Right.
something wrong, and to add fuel to the fire. You never quite knew when that was going to be. You never even anticipating. You learn to be hyper vigilant and anticipate other people's needs and moods and whatever. And it's exhausting for
It is.
one. It's
It is.
exhausting, and I think that's a lot to do for me with why I'm struggling to. I'm happy in my little space now. I feel comfortable. I'm good. I get to control the people I interact with, and the promises that are made and so forth and so. I'm responsible for me and me alone. And that's such a huge change from anything that I've done in my life that I'm finding it difficult, um, mentally, emotionally, and of course, still have physical issues, um, of really getting back out into the real world. It's just it just
Eventually, we have to at some point, but
we do, but I like that I have the control over it now. What versus going into work, or even coming home and never quite knowing what you're walking into, and
yeah,
what mine you're gonna step on, or it's exhausting to be that way. And so I feel like I'm maybe just now starting to come out of the burnout that has been for my life thus far.
no,
Yeah, that
because we've been,
finally I've had the time to recover, and to learn to listen to my body. And when my body says you
hmm
need to rest, instead of pushing and going, no, no, we can do this, we can do it. And instead, do you remember did you ever watch Futurama?
a few times, not really a
Well,
diehard.
there was this one episode, of course, Bender the robot, right? His whole
Mhm.
deal was that he bent things. And there was one episode where the professor got Bender went on site. I don't know. Anyway, the professor got bent over, and he's just walking. That's the way I had gotten. I had my back was so bad that I literally I could not stand up straight. I was practically bent over 90 degrees. That's how bad I had gotten. Uh, but it was because, again, we there was that conditioning to not only not speak your feelings, but not to feel them. You didn't want to feel those feelings, and so you repress all this stuff, and you're told, you're just too sensitive, or you're being a sissy, or whatever the case may be. And that's not how we need to be. We need to learn
Yeah,
to listen to this vessel that we're in, and the sooner that we learn to do that, I think that the happier we'll be all the way around. Because when
definitely.
we listen
But
and tune in like that, you and your body learn to what makes you happy and what to do to make you feel better. And I'm all about, if it don't make you happy, don't do it. These days, that's the way I feel about it. If it's
I
not
believe
going to make
our
you feel good, then I don't want a part of it.
that's a good way to be because I believe our cells remember perfection
Hmm.
and doing our best we can to eat as best we can, drink water because we are what 75% water, drink good water, not polluted water, but eat the best we can and be aware of pollutants, but just being a higher vibration soul and loving people and not being angry and sad and giving what we don't need to the universe, letting it go, we can be more comfortable.
Hmm.
You know, like per se with myself, I haven't been to the chiropractor in 6 plus years. I'm uncomfortable at times, but it's not um, devastating like it used to be. By changing a few things and listening to my body and the guides, like I used to be a diehard soda drinker, and one day they basically said you need to quit, get
Yeah.
some green, get some green tea and detox yourself from soda because basically it's like it's hurting you. It's
Yeah.
not raising your vibrations enough to be connected. So I got off that. It's like you detox your body by being in a better element, a better
Hmm.
love light source. And just
Well, it
staying,
is. I mean, even just getting up and deciding that you're going to be happy that day.
that's pretty much all it is.
It,
I mean, we're
yeah.
going to have our aches and pains. We may fall or we may sleep funny. It's going to happen, right? But we
But
have,
overall, yeah, once you get into that mindset, because I lived it. I've dealt with anxiety and depression my entire life, so I get those things, and I get that it's it really is just that easy. But I get that the whole notion of it's easier than it looks, right? You know, it feels overwhelming, and it feels like daunting, and it feels like, well, it can't just be that simple. But what I found is it really just is. You
it
know,
is.
I really just woke up one morning and went, I'm tired of feeling like shit. I'm going to be happy today. Whatever may come, I'm going to be happy. I'm going to enjoy myself today. And it's taken a lot of days like that to get to this point. But even though I'm in probably the most dire straits financially and everything that I've been in my entire life, I'm still more comfortable and more at ease now, despite not knowing how I'm going to pay the fucking bills tomorrow. you know, I'm still more at peace right now than I have been in my whole life. And
That,
that's in large part. to this community that we've come. I really have, there's that whole everything has two sides, and social media and YouTube and all this, that they have their downsides. But you can use it. Also depends on what you're using the tools for, right? If you're
Right.
using it to build a house versus tear one down, it's a whole different story. And so I'm grateful that these resources are out there, because otherwise we never in a million years would have met each other. You know, never, ever,
Correct.
ever would we have come across each other, let alone thought, hey, I like this guy. He's pretty nifty,
Yeah.
Just-
If it wasn't for the former guy, I don't
yeah,
think I wouldn't have been on
so there's always
YouTube.
that silver lining, and there's always that.
And that and COVID hitting because I didn't have these social outlets anymore.
Right.
I'm not going out there. I'm not
Well,
all
and
of
I'm
the,
still that way. I just got my Omicron booster a couple weeks ago, but I'm still that way. If I go out, I'm still got my mask on.
yeah.
I'm just, everything I've been through, I ain't about to take my chances. I've been left immunocompromised. I've already been through things that damn near killed me. I
Mhm.
ain't messing with COVID.
Yeah. It took what? I don't know. We didn't hardly do anything until 2020.
Right, exactly.
You know, I had to deliver for my job, masked up there and home. We didn't go out, you
Yeah.
know, except for groceries, so it became a different society and it gave me more time to grow.
Well,
And
exactly. I think that so many of us finally got our butts sat down and with nothing else to do besides, and that was that's kind of where I was. I was recovering from all my surgeries and whatnot, and like I say, you can only watch so much Netflix before you get bored out of your mind. So yeah, you start looking for these other outlets, and here we all have sort of. I
we've
mean, we found each other. We
all
all
crossed paths.
gravitated to the same places in the YouTube world. And we wouldn't be able to have these connections and be building um the networks and the ability to raise vibrations on a larger scale than we might otherwise be able to if it weren't for this community and the happenings of the last few years.
Definitely. The thing is, with any kind of creating habit, it takes positive reinforcement constantly, because
Right.
people don't get it. It's either with patience or letting go or whatever it is. You just keep saying it, and eventually it's kind of like with
Fake it
negativity.
till you make it, right?
Right. You know, it's the same thing with negativity or lies. It's the same with positive reinforcement. Or if you're trying to break a habit, you have to continually do something until it fades away.
Right.
It's like with the former guy. Lie, 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 and then people believe the lie. Well, you don't feel you're worthy until you keep reinforcing yourself. I'm worthy. I'm worthy. I'm worthy. I can let go. I'm better than this. I can heal myself. I can grow. And then eventually you're like, I'm good. I'm
Yeah.
perfect. I don't need the crazy uncle in my life that, believes in QAnon or whatever it is, It's all about self and creating, the community of souls that help you grow instead of bring you
It
down.
challenge you in the good ways, in the best ways.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
I have had to let go of people, but that's our whole experiment. And I hope you found connections, with your past life and understanding you But obviously, being in this community and what you've been growing and what you've learned, you've kind of figured out how to mend those wounds.
And I think too, it's there's a certain amount of courage involved, and even with the best positive reinforcement, you still have to dig deep within your own self to find that courage to say, to stand up and be like, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to be this person. I'm not going to be part of this toxic environment, whatever the case may
Yeah,
be. Um, don't be afraid to go digging for your own courage.
definitely.
I don't know. I've gotten to a place where I just can't abide cowards. It irks my nerves because you just
Yeah, you've been
the
through it all.
cowardice to
Even the,
continue
yeah,
to feed on fear and anger and that sort of thing. I think I've just moved to the point where that I I do not resonate with that, to the point that it bugs me. I
yeah.
just the cowardice just so find your courage. You
That's
have it
your,
in there,
that's
and
your
even if
guide.
you
That's
have
your
to
guide
pretend
talking to you.
for a while.
That's your guides talking to you.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, mine are the same way. If something is a lie, or they're telling me is a lie, or
Oh,
someone,
hypocrisy and all that. Yeah.
someone is pushing fear or anger stuff, or arguing within self on a video
Or
or
weren't you
whatever it may
talking?
be.
Somebody was talking to this morning. Was it you and Nancy Jean talking about MTG, who likes to argue for argument's sake?
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, it's like that. If that's what you're into, yeah,
no,
no, not anymore, not
you're
me.
not evolved enough. No,
Yeah,
you're not evolved enough.
yeah,
And that's the sad part about our community. Not our community, but I'm talking about the atmosphere of those people, that people believe it and they feed off of it and they like it. That's where we need to evolve. That's where
mhm,
we need to send them that love and light. It's like, gosh, when I see a Republican sign of a person that's running for governor or senate and I know they're a bad person, what they say, I just send love and light to that owner.
yeah,
See the light, see the truth. And that's the best way we can do it. Just
yeah,
let the universe do the work.
that's right.
It's there for us.
Yeah, I
Don't
agree.
send hatred. Don't send evil. Don't. I hope you have
The
an
whole
accent.
turnabout's fair play, or turn the other cheek or whatever. No, that's not going to work here. You've got to take the higher road. You've got to step up and this the phrase that's been popping in my head here recently is be the change you want to see.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So I mean, if you're still going around claiming enlightenment and yet you're still spewing stuff about these, and we have to embrace the people that are waking up and seeing the light, like you were talking about with
Yeah.
your daughter. You cannot chastise these people. You cannot belittle them. You cannot shake your finger at them. We have to embrace them with love because
That
they've
helps
been through
so
some
much.
shit. They're having to reconcile their past. They're having to um, use their mind in an entirely new and different way than they ever have before. And just like if you were going to try something new and you're shamed for it or whatever, you're not going to really want to go back to that, are you? But if you're welcomed and hey, if you what if you're going to want to come back if you feel welcomed and you feel loved. And
Yeah.
that's where we need to be. It's too easy to be like, how could you possibly, for all these years? That's not what anybody needs to hear. It's the golden rule situation.
Yeah,
And for me, that's what it all boils down to is, how you want to be treated. Treat other people that way.
yeah,
It's not a difficult concept. If you don't want somebody coming and beating you up because you didn't know better before, that's the whole point. We do better once we know better. And the people that do
yeah.
not choose to do better once they know better, well, that's your problem, people. But they're not the target of this discussion. This is about the people who are waking up and understanding that we've been sold this idea of American exceptionalism and what that means. And even to a larger extent, we've been sold this idea that we need to be part of this society where you have to do this and you have to earn money and you have to trade your time for money and blah, blah, blah. That's not the way the world works. That's the way that these humans that are currently in charge and have been for, the last several thousand years. That's
Yeah.
what they have created and beat into us as how it should be. When the reality is, we need to be able to be quiet in our spaces and we need to be able to listen to not only ourselves and our spirit guides, but our Mother Earth. She's hollering and screaming at us right now, and we still got so many people who don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
So, just think about being on the other side of that. We have to embrace these people. We don't have to like them. I'm not saying we have to like them, but we do have to love them.
Yeah. Unfortunately, they don't feel like they're old souls. They haven't been on the around the block if they can't comprehend what's right and wrong. So they're going through their own experience.
Right. And you got to remember that too. Everybody's going through their own experience. Everybody's got their own soul contracts that they are navigating. Everybody's got their own upbringing, and that determines a lot of how willing
Programming.
and open you are to other ideas. I mean, for me, it was a matter of, well, this can't be right because this is awful. There's got to be something different, something better. And so, I mean, I've studied religion, I've studied philosophy, whatever interests me or whatever I, stumble across and go, huh, I wonder what that could be about. And when you do that, you start to realize, again, it all boils down to the golden rule. That's pretty much the bottom line of any religion that's out there, is treat others with kindness, just as you want to be treated.
Well, that's basically why we hope that we can get back to the originality of that love ourselves, respect others like we would treat each other. And there doesn't have to be religion.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
That's
And
the way
I'm
I
not a
think it's going to go forward.
yeah. Well, especially, of course, this gets into a whole different realm of conversation, but especially since the church in general has been corrupted and is really, I mean, all they're doing is laundering money, right? So it's really
Pretty
what they
much.
that has become their sole function, I believe, in a lot of respects. So, but it's not to say, I believe that you find what you go looking for. So if you're going and looking for the good messages and the good messengers, those are the people that will be put in your path.
Yeah. But we have to, unfortunately, certain people just don't find that path. They stay in that zone, how they want to be.
But they're not our responsibility either.
No.
In the end, they're the ones that have to come to terms with with who they choose to be, the role they choose to play.
Correct. They all have
Yeah,
their play, but for our own soul's desire, always remember to send them that love.
that's right.
See the light. I always just say, I can shake my head. I can, do the face palm. Oh my God. But send them love and say, please see the light. This is not how you should be. Otherwise, next time around, they're going to have to do it again or have a different scenario where it ain't so fun.
Yeah.
And we want more people sending that kind of vibrations and greeting everyone as family and saying hi and have a great day and beautiful day or blessed day or or
Yeah.
complimenting some random stranger, whatever it may be. By being enlightened changes. It changes things.
Hmm.
It changes our universe.
Yeah,
It makes
absolutely.
it makes Mother Earth happy. We need to raise
We
more
need
people.
as much of that as we can get right now.
Yes, pretty much. So, but that's the whole process. And bless you for telling all your stories because myself, I wasn't in as a bad in his environment that you were raised. I mean, I wasn't wealthy, but I worked hard. I was farmer's boy, but had problems with my dad. My mother was wonderful. I got along with my siblings. Some of my siblings are stubborn, but we're all loving to each other.
Yeah.
Stubborn meaning politically stubborn. They won't listen. They're stuck in their ways that way. So we just leave it alone, so we don't have that aspect. But, you know, certain people, you just kind of tell and see how it flows. And if they're in the way, goodbye.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I had a cousin that loved dearly, and all growing up, we kind of took the same path. And of sorts, we both went in the military after high school. He went on to college. I went back to the farm. But somewhere around the way, he lost his way. He was far right. He was QAnon right. I just couldn't deal with the man. I'm like, be on your way. Well, he's now in heaven.
Mm.
Same age as me. Left 2 kids and a wife. You know, he chose a different path.
Yeah.
And a lot of these other folks of that realm went to January 6th and now they're going to prison for a while. They're losing their life. So what path do you want to take?
Yeah.
My cousin didn't understand that type of life. He had to choose a different path, and now he's learning in a different realm. You know, his wife and 2 kids, his 2 kids especially, will miss him dearly. He was dad, took him fishing, took him places. He was dad, but now those young teenagers don't have a dad.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of if you can see it, you seen it. I seen it. I mean, I seen things with my own family with my father whatnot, and I seen it. But thankfully, I had a mother that was compassionate enough to keep me on that loving side of life. And I was a mama's boy. It's like the biggest thing me growing up was when I went and see my mom. She would never let you leave her without a hug and a kiss. You had to give her a kiss on the lips, so you weren't leaving. I love you and a hug. Bye, mom. And the caring and everything she's done. Who knows if I didn't have that in my life? I could have been, if I had 2 toxic parents, I'm sure it would have been a different story.
Yeah.
I would have been hanging out with people that done drugs in the street corner and partied every night instead of went to school. You never know what
Yeah.
influence that created. But in my sense, I was lucky.
Yeah.
You
I hear
know,
you.
and you've seen it. You evolved, and now you're in a good community and understanding our vibrations and being in love. So kudos and thank you for being on this. And
Well, I
love.
appreciate it. I'm definitely gonna. I got my notes written out here, so I'm definitely gonna do some googling and see what I
Yeah,
can come
do
up
some
with.
good.
I'm terribly interested to see what I see
It
if I
is
can make
fascinating in certain
any
realms.
connections.
People have found. Uh, yeah, we didn't get to it. I always try to look at your guides. Maybe I'll just check in with you with a text message or something later because this is getting
Okay.
long. But
Yeah, I
yeah,
was gonna
do
say
some
I kind of
googling.
need to wrap it
People,
up. My critters are hungry, and
yeah, I mean, people have found things when they Googled. You know, I mean, it's always been pretty close in time frames, so it's fascinating. You know,
yeah, I'm
so
I'm definitely
check it out.
gonna do some digging and see what I come up with for sure.
Well, blessings, Rene.
Well, thank you so
Love to
much for
you.
thinking of me and including me in this. So I appreciate that.
You betcha. So we'll see you in the community. Love,
Absolutely. Thank
love,
you.
love.
Bye bye.
Bye.